Wizard of Oz, Chapter 21. The Lion Becomes King of the Beasts. After climbing down from the China Wall, the travelers found themselves in a disagreeable country, full of bogs and marshes covered with tall, rank grass. It was difficult to walk without falling into muddy holes, for the grass was so thick that it hid them from sight. However, by carefully picking their way, they got safely along until they reached solid ground. But here the country seemed wilder than ever, and after a long and tiresome walk through the underbrush, they entered another forest where the trees were bigger and older than any they had ever seen. "This forest is perfectly delightful," declared the lion, looking around him with joy. "Never have I seen a more beautiful place." "It seems gloomy," said the scarecrow. "Not a bit of it," answered the lion. "I should like to live here all my life. See how soft the dried leaves are under your feet, and how rich and green the moss is that clings to these old trees. Surely no wild beast could wish a pleasanter home." "Perhaps there are wild beasts in the forest now," said Dorothy. "I suppose there are," returned the lion, "but I do not see any of them about." They walked through the forest until it became too dark to go any further. Dorothy and Toto and the lion lay down to sleep, while the woodman and the scarecrow kept watch over them as usual. When morning came, they started again. Before they had gone far, they heard a low rumble as a growling of many wild animals. Toto whimpered a little, but none of the others were frightened, and they kept along the well-trodden path until they came to an opening in the wood, in which were gathered hundreds of beasts of every variety. There were tigers and elephants and bears and wolves and foxes and all of the others in the natural history, and for a moment Dorothy was afraid. But the lion explained that the animals were holding a meeting, and he judged by their snarling and growling that they were in great trouble. As he spoke, several of the beasts caught sight of him, and at once the great assemblage hushed as if by magic. The biggest of the tigers came up to the lion and bowed, saying, "Welcome, O King of Beasts. You have come in a good time to fight our enemy and bring peace to all the animals of the forest once more." "What is your trouble?" asked the lion quietly. "We are all threatened," answered the tiger, "by a fierce enemy which has lately come into the forest. It is a most tremendous monster, like a great spider, with a body as big as an elephant and legs as long as a tree trunk. It has 8 of these long legs, and the monster crawls through the forest. He seizes an animal with a leg and drags it into his mouth, where he eats it as a spider does a fly. No, not one of us is safe while this fierce creature is alive, and we had called a meeting to decide how to take care of ourselves when you came among us." The lion thought for a moment. "Are there any other lions in this forest?" he asked. "No, there were some, but the monster has eaten them all. And besides, none of them were nearly so large and brave as you. If I put an end to your enemy, will you bow down to me and obey me as king of the beasts?" inquired the lion. "We will do that gladly," returned the tiger, and all of the other beasts roared with a mighty roar. "We will!" "Where is this great spider of yours now?" asked the lion. "Yonder, among the oak trees," said the tiger, pointing with his forefoot. "Take good care of these friends of mine," said the lion, "and I will go at once to fight the monster." He bade his companions goodbye and marched proudly away to do battle with the enemy. The great spider was lying asleep when the lion found him, and it looked so ugly his foe turned up his nose in disgust. Its legs were quite as long as the tiger had said, and its body covered with coarse black hair. It had a great mouth with a row of sharp teeth about a foot long, but its head was joined to the pudgy body by a neck as slender as a wasp's waist. This gave the lion a hint of the best way to attack the creature, and as he knew it was either fight it asleep or then awake, he gave a great spring and landed directly on the monster's back. Then, with one blow of his heavy paw, all armed with sharp claws, he knocked the spider's head from its body. Jumping down, he watched it as the spider's long legs stopped wiggling, when he knew it was quite dead. The lion went back to the opening where the beasts of the forest were waiting for him and said proudly, "You need fear your enemy no longer." Then the beasts bowed down to the lion as their king, and he promised to come back and rule over them as soon as Dorothy was safely on her way to Kansas. This is the end of chapter 21. That was kind of sneaky of the lion to hit the spider while it's asleep. But, bad things happen. Bad things can happen when you're asleep. And, the spider probably didn't care about animals being asleep when it picked them up and ate them. And sometimes you have to do sneaky things in order to survive. So, yeah, not according to Hoyle, but, it works. So that is another great beast set upon, another great challenge that they managed to defeat. And it looks like the lion has a new home. Because lion's going to stay there in the land of the Quadlings, in the forest. The Scarecrow is going to go back and rule over Emerald City. And the Tin Woodman has the invite from the Winkies. So it looks like each of them have a new home. They all came from Munchkin Land. Except for Dorothy, who's going back to Kansas, hopefully. And they're all going to different parts. Now, your dad was born here in Pennsylvania. And he joined the Navy and saw some of the world, and then he moved to Omaha, which is kind of in the middle of the country, just like the Emerald City is kind of in the middle of Oz. So your dad kind of came from Munchkin Land and ended up in the Emerald City, maybe? Though I've heard that the Emerald City is actually a metaphor for Washington, D.C., which isn't really in the middle. It's kind of deep in Munchkin Land. But actually, that was how I knew my directions when I was a kid. I read The Wizard of Oz, and I loved the book. And in the front of the copy I had, there was a map. With Munchkin Land in the east, and the Winkies in the west, or Munchkin Land in the east, and the Winkies in the west, and the Emerald City in the middle, and the Quadlings in the south, and I can't remember, Kinkles, something like that, for the north. But I had this map in my mind, and in my mind, Munchkin Land was in the east. And so it's like, okay, which way do I want to go to Munchkin Land? Or I want to go to this way. But, so that is chapter 21. Only 3 more left. Will Dorothy make it home? We'll find out.